what are you guys doing, man? Robert wouldn't just walk up to your crib and try to steal it when literally the alarm is right on the front blinking blue. You guys drive me crazy, man. You guys just start the video, bruh. And as you can see, we got a couple things. We got our kill switch. It should just be plug and play. And really all I have to do is hide the switch. Then we have our actual alarm system, the two-way responder. So basically the way these work is there's one way and there's two way. One way is the controller just sends one signal to the car and then that's it, it just unlocks. Two way is the remote control sends an alarm to the car, the alarm system sends signal back to the control, and then it's basically like, okay, we're unlocking this car, and then it unlocks. Since this car has no like automatic locking system, we have to get actuators. I got two, one from the driver's side and one for the passenger side. You can also get some for the trunk, but that will be for another day. Anyway, so first we gotta start off by finding our main relay. And our main relay on this car will be right under here behind the glove box. So let's start off by tearing this apart. That came out really aggressive, holy crap. What the hell? Then we just have the 10mm bolt to remove for our main relay. Most people do it on their main relay, but that doesn't stop you. You could do as many kill switches as you want. You could have like 5 if you really wanted to. I mean, it's just a matter of slowing down whoever's trying to steal it, right? Because at the end of the day, they could always tow the car. It really just makes it a hassle for whoever is trying to steal your car. Some examples of where you could also put a kill switch would be your ignition. You could also do your fuel pump. You could also do your ECU. There's a whole spectrum of areas that you can do. So let's go ahead and actually unbox what came in my kill switch. And just FYI, you don't need to buy something like this. You can do it with like Amazon parts, probably for like way cheaper, less than 100 bucks. But I bought this just for the sake of simplicity and because it actually comes with its own relay, which replaces the one that you currently have in the car. Because apparently on these cars, for some reason, the relay likes messing up. Or from what I read and my understanding. Having one like this makes it easier to where you can just buy cheaper relays and replace it. Those cost a little bit more. That's why we get this. So we got this part, and then we have our actual switch part, and then some stickers. Before we even get started with this, I recommend we actually disconnect the battery. It may not necessarily be like needed, but it's better safe than to be sorry. You know? There's a reason for that. You never want to like, what if it accidentally shorts out and then it just messes up your ECU or something weird? So it's just better to disconnect this, and it's not even that hard. It's just this little nut. Don't forget to put a rag over it or something. You don't want that to accidentally touch and then it's grounded out again. We're actually gonna test out the relay to see if it even works. Now we can just disconnect this, and it's just a little button right here. And it's literally just a matter of plugging this in now. Let's go ahead and hop in the driver's seat and see if we can hear our fuel pump kicking on. Starts right up. Now we go get our switch and we can just plug it in. We can just unplug it. And now that's where we would put in our switch in between this connector from the actual harness of the Honda and then into the relay. So you're basically just putting this in the middle. But in between where the connectors meet, you can see a little bit of metal. So by the end, when we put this switch in and we find like basically we get it finalized, you actually want to put like a little heat shrink there just to hold it in place, and so that way nothing like gets in there and messes up the connection. But yeah, as I said, let's just plug this in and test it out. These will only go one way, so there's really no way of like messing up. So look, this is easy. Boom. And then we're gonna put this over here. Let's connect our battery back again. And now we flip our switch back. So now that this works, we're basically done, but not really. And let me explain. It's really easy to just get this wire and cut it and then just put them back together. And then it's basically like the switch wasn't there, right? So instead, me and my mom actually went to the junkyard and we picked this up. It's from an original 2000 Honda Civic. And the reason for it is because we want to use it. Why, you may ask? To practice on it. But not only to practice on it, it actually serves a great purpose. And its purpose is to go in here in place of the old wire. Basically, the old wire will still be there, so the original harness is not modified. But now we have an extra wire. Why, you may ask? We can put the switch there, and then we can just hide this new wire from the other Honda Civic, and it'll look like if it's not even been modified once I tuck the wires away. I think this is great because now it also gives me the option of putting another kill switch later down the road on this part. So now we have the option of having 2 kill switches. But for the most part, the main point of that is to just make it clean and simple and not mess with the original harness too much. Now I'm gonna make a bracket for this part so that way I can just tuck it away somewhere else. Everything's now in place. Now we just have to tuck away our kill switch wire somewhere. So to do that, we need to remove the seats so that way we have a little bit more room. Before we start even cutting anything up, we actually have to measure out how long of this plastic loom that we need. For the kill switch, I'm actually gonna wrap the JDI loom, the original one, with electrical tape to make it look a little bit more OEM. Because at the moment, when you look at it under the dash, it looks really like it stands out compared to everything else. Now that we basically have it all finalized, we can start on our alarm. Let's first start off by taking off the last seat, and then our door cards, and then the rest of the interior. I also have to clean some of my space because it's a little dirty. Okay, that's somewhat better. As you guys saw earlier, we will be using the Viper alarm system, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other options. There's CompuStar, Aviso, and Clifford, to name a few. Sometimes can actually include GPS systems, which you pay a monthly service for. Like for example, Viper and CompuStar. I know specifically a Viper, you can get a one that you add on top of this. And also, we're actually gonna be doing the actuators first. Why? This only comes with 2 wires, so we can kind of just run it on the driver's side and then move our way to the passenger side. We could also use the OEM ones that the other Honda Civics come with. And with some other alarm systems, like specifically the cheaper ones, you may actually have to use a relay, specifically the 451M relay, because that will handle kind of like the door actuator actions, and then it'll connect straight to your alarm system. Now to mount our actuator. So with the actuator, there's only so many places you can put it. It has to be parallel with this little bar, basically. My idea, which is not really my idea, but it's based on the resources that I've found, which I'll share in the description, by the way. It'll basically be like right there. We're gonna have to remove this plastic piece, but it basically just means that as this thing extends, it'll push this bar that way, and then when it closes, it'll push it the other way. This is future me talking, by the way. One thing I should have done before drilling out any of the holes was put tape over it and then marking where the hole was gonna go. Now that we got the plastic piece out the way, we can use our punch so that way we can start drilling out the hole for where this little bracket will go. We're gonna start with our smaller bit first and then move our way up so we can get the hole just right, so that way the bolt that I bought fits right through. I'll actually be using my own hardware instead of the one that they provided. Now we do the same thing on the left side. We first mark it, then we punch it. And then using a spare TV washer I had laying around, I was able to put it behind this part, so that way it sticks out a little bit further out and allows this to mount up pretty parallel with our locking mechanism. And since we drilled holes, we actually want to protect it from rusting, since it's going to be bare metal right in that little middle spot where the drill goes in. So we're just going to use some tape. Now that the primer's dry, I'm also going to be putting on some rust reformer just as an extra layer. And meanwhile that dries, I'm going to go ahead and start on the passenger side. Now that the driver's side is dry, we can go ahead and apply some blue thread locker to this little piece that holds onto our locking mechanism. This will help with it not backing out over time, so it should help with it having a good hold. And since this is our driver's side, the reason the door is closed is because with these cars, when they're unlocked, it doesn't let you lock the driver's side because it's a way to prevent you from locking yourself out. But since the door is closed, I did it while the locking part was unlocked and the actuator is closed. Now the driver's side is all done, we can now attach our wires. I then used the heat gun on the plastic bits and then ran the heat shrink over it and heated it up as well. And then I braided my wires and ran harness tape around it to make it look really clean. And to run the wires through the grommet to get inside the car, I actually had to remove both fenders because there's not enough room to reach the little ends of the grommet. And I ended up having to cut the black middle part so that way I could run my own wire, because at the end it was actually like crimped off or like kind of like closed off, so I couldn't even get a wire through. And with the black piece cut off, I was able to get the wire through almost like halfway between the orange part where it clips into the door. And using plastic tubing from Amazon, I replaced the old plastic and kept the same OEM look. We can now move on to installing our siren. I started by removing the battery and the fuse box. I attached the siren using self-tappers under the fuse box and ran my wire through a slit I cut in the firewall grommet. Now let's start on the alarm, so let's tear apart the rest of our interior. Now we can remove our side panel to expose where our alarm is going to sit at. Now we are at the fun part, and or the not so fun part, depending on who you are. We're going to see what came in our Viper box. So we got the stickers, a owner's guide, a siren. Oh, that's nice. I actually didn't know it came with that. Then I'm guessing the actual alarm system right here where everything else connects to. And then a whole bunch of wiring and a battery. And then this is our antenna. And then we actually get our wiring information, which is probably the most important part. And holy guacamole, it looks like a lot. But we're gonna try to make this as simple as possible. Okay, first off, let's actually try to understand piece by piece what each part does. Let's start off with this orange and yellow and black wire that are over here. This will be our starter interrupt switch basically. So if the alarm is armed, this will act as like a switch. Basically just know that this will be for the starter and it'll interrupt any signal that goes to it, so that way it won't activate. And to provide a little better clarity involving the starter interrupt relay, once you find your starter wire that receives 12 volts whenever you crank it, for me it was a black and white cable here. There's two, but it was just one. You cut it, and the side that continues to get the 12 volts is called the key side, and that's where your black cable goes. The green cable will go to the other end, and then it's basically filtered through this relay. If the car is armed, it won't let it start, and if it's unlocked, then it'll start like normal. Next, move our way to our main harness area. One of the easiest parts of this is probably installing the siren, so we can start with that first. It'll just plug up right here, and it's the only one that this would fit in. I was initially planning on mounting it here, but since the wire should be extended like fully all the way, I decided to do it on the front. Now we can connect our main part of the harness, so that way we can start sorting out which wires we will be using and which ones we won't. Now I'm basically just gonna work my way through the harness and move the ones that I will be using to the left and the ones that I won't be needing to the right. For our unwanted wires, you could just depin them right away, but for me, I think I'm just gonna tidy them up a little bit. Now that we know what wires we will be using on the alarm side, it's good to find out what you will be using on the car side. That's where a website like 12volt.com can give you a lot of the information to help you figure out what you're gonna be using. We're gonna be using a multimeter and a test light throughout this to find all the wires that we need. So let's start with an example. Our constant 12 volt is a white cable here. On the alarm side, the red cable. And using our multimeter, we can put our black lead on the ground and our red one on the white cable and expect to see 12 volts constantly. Now that we know how to find voltages with our multimeter, we can go ahead and do the rest of it basically with the test light. This one plugs into our cigarette lighter, and all you gotta do is turn the key on, and then this will power on. This will basically tell you that it's ready. Green means ground and red means power. So I'm gonna be showing you guys how to look for a negative door trigger input, because a Honda Civic uses a negative trigger. Whenever the door is open, it'll send out a negative ground signal basically for whatever two doors. The hatch is a whole different one. The hatch actually uses an instant trigger input, which is also a ground, but it has its own wire that runs through the back and to the front. What we gotta do is put our key in and turn the switch on, and then we should find our cable from the Honda side and expect to see a green light show up whenever this button is out, meaning the door is open. If it's in, it should be either red or there should be no input to it. And now, specifically for our starter, we would have to get our switch, find the cable that we want to check. I'm looking for it to output a positive 12 volts whenever it's in the run and crank position. It's green, put it in the other mode, and now it's red. And then if I crank it, it should also stay red. And now that you know the basics of finding any wire that you need, we can go ahead and find those wires and kind of mock up how we're gonna mount it. For me, for example, I'm gonna be actually running majority of my wires to the front. However, keep in mind our 451M relay, which will be used for the actuators. Some of those wires can actually be connected into our alarm because it needs ground and power. Our alarm can provide that directly from the beginning, meaning that they do not have to be ran all the way to the front. So before you start tightening the wires up, keep in mind where the wires are going and how you can make it as efficient as possible. So my idea is to join the ground wires and any of the positive wires into their own sections, since for the grounds, they could all technically be grounded to the same place, and for the power, then it's the same way, vice versa. So here, I'm actually gonna, since I'm grounding here, I have my two wires from my actuator, and I'm just gonna run it to where they're gonna go to, and I'm just gonna cut relatively a little bit longer just in case, but if anything, I could always extend them. And for our power wire, same thing, but since this one is going relatively close, we're gonna steal the power from our alarm. And now that we relatively know where our wires are going, we can go ahead and extend them, cut them, and group them together, so that way it's all prepped here, and once we go back, we can just go ahead and just start connecting our wires. And now let's talk about how we're actually gonna be connecting our wires. Here I have open barrel connectors, and on the other side I have just regular non-insulated butt connectors basically. This is gonna be my main method of doing it, but you can also do soldering, and then the not so good way is just taping them together and wrapping them around. Soldering can work, but from what I've heard from people is in cars, a car is obviously gonna vibrate, and over time it's gonna crumble away the solder, because with soldering it kind of like grows into the wire and it just kind of makes it a little stiff. Crimping is about the best method for holding wires together. So let's go about connecting our power wire from our relay, which is our purple, to our red constant 12 volt from our alarm system. You have a connector, you make a cut in the middle, and then you connect the other one through. So it's basically like you're tapping into it. If you wanted to test it, you could actually do a continuity test. If there's a current between these two where they're able to reach each other, then it means that your connection is good. You would put one of the probes at one end of the wire, so for example here on the red one, and then the other one on the purple. As you can see there'd be a 0.2 resistance, which is insignificant, so that connection is good, and we can put our heat shrink on. T-taps are no good, do not use those. This type of non-insulated connector is good for extending wires and or connecting two wires together from their tips. And using our newfound knowledge, we can go ahead and extend all our wires. Since this blue wire is a little thinner than the others, I'm actually gonna fold it in on itself before I crimp it and put it into the butt connector, because if I don't, it'll just slip out. And now that I have all the cables extended, I'm gonna go ahead and use some Tesla tape to group all the wires. My grounds will be together and all the ones running to the front will be together. So let's go ahead and do that. Now that we have it all ready, we can move on to finally running the wires inside the car. Now that we're inside the car, we can begin feeding our wires through. I used aluminum wire and painter's tape and depinned the starter relay as well, and ran the connectors behind the seatbelt and under this bar. And using some plastic tubing, we can finalize everything else. We can then mount where our alarm and relay will be using the same hardware from before. We can then mount our starter interrupt relay and begin connecting all our wires to their appropriate spots using our notes from before. And now we got everything connected and it seems to be working. This is to test out our locking mechanism. Locking works. The only thing that doesn't work is our trunk, so we have to manually lock it because we don't have actuators on the back. But unlocking works and our alarm works too. And a couple more things before I end the video. Most alarms, they have a little sensor that detects when there's movement. So let's say I bump into this. You can adjust the knob that will basically tell it how sensitive it should be. Then this is basically my final product of how it came out. I'd say it looks pretty good. I think I could have made it a little bit more efficient in certain areas, but for my first time, I got it to work. And the only problem I had initially was my locking and my unlocking mechanism was flipped. And all I had to do was flip the blue and green wires basically from here opposite. So blue went to green and green went to blue. And that fixed everything. It was because of polarity. So yeah. So anyways, that's about it. I'm pretty proud of myself for getting this done. You don't come to appreciate an alarm until you wire one yourself, because now every time I press this button, I remember how long and how frustrating it was at times, especially crimping in areas that are like really tiny. It is not fun. But that's about it for this video. I hope you guys stick around for the next one. If you like this video and learned anything new, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and please leave a comment just saying anything, not anything, but like, you know, something about the video or what you guys want to see next. My idea is I'm probably going to tear apart the inside of this more, or do a speaker setup and paint the carpet and do all the interior while I'm at it, because it was a lot of interior work. And to be honest, I don't think I ever want to like have to tear this interior part as much as this ever again, unless I'm doing like some race car stuff. But I want to get everything all situated in here. But anyways, that's about it. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Peace out to the next one. Also, happy Thanksgiving to those people that celebrate Thanksgiving. And if this is not on Thanksgiving, then happy late Thanksgiving.